Hello, this is Jonathan Leeman.
And I'm Mark Dever.
This is Jonathan Leeman. You're Jonathan Leeman, but I'm just announcing that Jonathan Leeman is here.
And I said, this is Mark Dever.
No, I think you said I am.
Oh, did I?
I think so.
Oh, goodness. I fell for it. Welcome to Pastor's Talk. Learn more, 9marks.org. And if you want to help give, you can go to 9marks.org/talk.
Because someone has to come up with the brilliant rhetoric that's represented
in
on
this conversation
show.
Every time.
The number of writers it takes to really manufacture the pure, unending, without any intermission gold verbally that is experienced by the listener on this podcast is staggering to take into account and to imagine.
And maybe giving would bring back the sound effects?
Oh, I wouldn't dare to speak to the exalted levels of Alberto.
Yeah, fair enough. Mark, I want to think today with you about small groups.
Okay.
Now, you need to be nice.
Oh, brother, I started small groups at our church. There were no small groups when I got here.
Okay. Because not everybody does small groups like CHBC does.
Oh, sure. Of course not.
I think the subtitle, if this conversation had a subtitle, would be helpful, not essential. Fair subtitle?
Very, very fair subtitle.
Okay. Are you a part of a small group?
No.
But you started them.
Yes.
Why aren't you part of one?
I have been in the past. We've led community groups. We've led married couple groups. We've, I'm part of the elders, but just time. So we don't tell members of Capitol Hill Baptist Church that you need to be in a small group. We make them available. You're welcome to be in one. We have we have special types, and then we have two basic general ones, gender specific, that tend to meet on a weeknight, and then community groups that are geographically based, men, women, and those tend to be on Fridays or Saturdays. The gender-specific ones during the week tend to meet every week. The geographically oriented ones tend to meet every other week or once a month.
Then you also have new married.
We do have the newly married couple groups. We have evangelistic
people
groups.
People in the first 5 years.
Yeah, there are going to be various kinds of specific small groups
beyond that, but those
targeted. The two basic general ones are the midweek and then the community groups.
Now, how do you and the elders think about just taking the gender specific and the community groups, think about those
and
groups?
They would both be members only.
Right. Okay, we'll come back to that. How do you let's start
Which
there.
I think was the kind
only?
of jacket you used to wear when you first came around to CHBC.
Members only?
I'm pretty sure.
Is that a brand? That sounds like a brand.
Pretty sure you had one of those.
Okay.
So if you want to Google that, you can look it up and see what Jonathan looked like.
Leather jacket, members only.
Yeah, pretty much. Riding that motorcycle.
Why members only?
I don't know, man. I didn't wear it.
Why members only in the small groups?
Oh, well, because we want people to understand that the church as a whole is more important than a particular small group.
Yeah.
So we're not trying to get them to choose our church based on whether they like or dislike a small group. We are trying to teach them that the basic diet is provided by the public services, Sunday morning, Sunday night especially. And therefore, they need to come in and become a part of that community before we would then let them into a small group.
But Mark, this is a way a person can kind of get a sense of the church and its life. And what's wrong with that?
We would think it would be unhelpful if the person says, hey, I really like this Thursday night Bible study. Not a big fan of the church services on the weekend, especially not Sunday night. So I'll come usually on Sunday morning when I'm around, but I'm not going to really do Sunday night. But I'll come to that group on Thursday night. I'll make really the center of my Christian community. We don't want them to be able to do that. As we can't really ultimately prevent it, but we'll do what we can to make it more difficult. That's right.
Fair enough. Okay, so back to the question I was going to ask before. How do you and the elders understand themselves? Are you pastoring through small groups? Are you building the ministry of the church? How much are you relying on small groups to do the ministry of the church or the pastoral ministry of the church?
I don't know that we're relying on. We certainly know that a lot of ministry happens through personal relationships. So insofar as brothers and sisters are relating to each other in a godly fashion and are taking initiative with people and trying to help each other, small groups can be a wonderful forum for that. But I'm pretty sure the value is going to float depending on, one, the individual's involvement, their own spiritual maturity, and two, how good the small group is, both in its teacher and in the community. So I would just turn the question for you on Cheverly. What do you guys do at Cheverly with that?
Well, when we started, we realized because we were meeting in a school gym, we didn't have A, core seminars, B, Sunday night, C, Wednesday night. The only space and time we felt like at that point we could afford getting together as a whole church was the Sunday morning gathering.
Okay.
And therefore we thought, okay, how can we get some of that awesome core seminar material into our people? And we thought about, okay, how can we also encourage times of praying together? And the elders in the beginning thought, let's try small groups for exporting some of those goods.
Wow.
In the life of the church.
So you literally give them like core seminar manuscripts and ask small group leaders to teach those.
Yeah.
How'd that work?
It succeeded when we went through evangelism. I think evangelism was useful. And I think that's the only one we ever attempted. I don't think we tried another one after that. I think it was hard.
I know a lot of churches will be very deliberate and careful with the material in the small groups. It'll be determined by the elders.
Yep.
And sometimes it'll simply be preparation for the coming expositional sermon they're going to hear or reflections from the one they just heard. Any thoughts on that? Should the elders take responsibility for the material in the small groups? And if so, should they tie it to the sermon specifically?
Well, obviously these are questions of freedom. You don't have to. I think that it depends on what you also have going on. So if you have a core seminar and if you have a Sunday night and a Wednesday night like CHBC does, I think there's more freedom to use small groups in this or that way, and using it as an opportunity to reflecting on a Sunday morning service. I think it's a great thing to do. Give people a chance to drill down.
For you, church like your situation,
us, I'm a little more reluctant to use it just to double up on the Sunday morning sermon because we don't have other opportunities.
So you want an independent stream of teaching coming in. Okay. So what are you doing right now at Chevrolet?
My small group is going through the book of Proverbs. Other small groups are going through. For the first 2 or 3 years, the elders were guiding all of it.
Okay. And that worked well?
Yeah, I think that did work well. Increasingly, small groups started to diversify and they do different things, but all of them are typically either a book that they're reading or a book of the Bible that they're reading together.
Okay. Great. So Jonathan, a lot of churches don't give much guidance. I don't know how much guidance we give. I think we officially take responsibility for, but unless there's a problem, I'm not sure we give a lot of guidance. Thoughts on problems churches get into if they don't give much guidance to what small groups are studying?
Yeah, I think on the one hand, that's okay. And again, I think it depends on how many other things you have going on as avenues, hoses of good material into the life of the congregation. And the more hoses, the less I think you can just allow small groups to do what they will. One challenge that does come up when guidance isn't given is people start doing things that aren't useful. In fact, I remember
Joyce Meyer.
Yes,
I know, me too.
CHBC.
Yeah.
Right. Now, was it taught or was it asked to be
Just
taught?
to be clear, Joyce was not a member of our church. She wasn't here doing any live work, but I got news that, a couple of our ladies were quoting positively Joyce Meyer in a women's small group.
Yeah.
And while I'm sure Joyce Meyer has said true things, on the whole, I'm quite concerned about her ministry and don't really want that as one of the ministries that's shaping the members of our church.
Right.
And so for several weeks afterwards, Joyce Meyer seemed to start appearing in my sermons as a negative example again and again.
That.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that would be an example perhaps of, maybe it would happen anyway with just individual comments. It wasn't the leader.
Example.
But if we don't give enough attention to those who are leading small groups, they might not be well equipped to deal with a situation like that.
And that's Joyce Meyer's a comparatively clear example. What's harder is it when it's a teacher who isn't that
Jonathan Leeman,
who's closer into the faithful,
Jonathan
but
Leeman.
a little bit.
Jonathan Leeman.
You wouldn't use my material? Is that what you're saying?
No. I think we would. I mean, with the like Doctor's Warning, we certainly would.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
He's not a member of CHBC, but he seems to be generally reliable.
Yeah. Okay. Well, fair enough. Somebody like that. At the same time, and I feel like I've heard you say this, you want to say to the members of your church, hey, they're in your law firm. If you want to start a Bible study.
Yeah.
On Tuesday lunchtime with other Christian lawyers in your firm or an evangelist. That's awesome. Great.
So guys out there in TV land, it's pathetic the way he'll say, I think I've heard you say a little phrase as if somehow that will cause my defenses to be lowered. And I'll much more quickly agree with it because, of course, I would have only have said what's wise and good. But who knows how easily at this advanced age I can be manipulated and bamboozled. So let's just keep our eyes open and watch, shall we? Yes, Jonathan, what was it I was saying?
I appreciate the way you've commonly said interpreting people's motives
Yes.
can be very unspiritual.
It's so true.
Yeah.
Motives.
It's
Not going to motives. Not going to motives. You were saying something about what I'd said.
Tactics.
What did I said? I think we're on small groups right now.
You're happy for
Often.
people
Yep. Love people.
to
We're good so far. Whether or not I've said it or whoever said it.
happy for people to start whatever small groups they want, as it were, out there.
Yeah. So
start-
long as we're not responsible for them as a church.
Right.
So Tom, who works at the grocery store, he can start one with all the people who work there at lunchtime, do whatever he wants.
That's
now,
great.
if he wants to be a CHBC small group, well, then we could help him do the evangelism. Or if it's Christians who are members of CHBC who work there, that's fine. But if it's going to be something that our elders would encourage somebody to go to regularly, we would count on them. Then we would want him to go through the training that we have for small group leaders, and we would want to know what he's teaching and him to be, in some sense, accountable to the elders directly for what he's teaching. And that may come mediated through a staff member who particularly works with small group leaders.
In other words, there's a line between small groups for which we're taking responsibility as a church. These are
And
quote
those
unquote
which we're not.
church small groups,
That's right.
and those are not.
That's
and
right.
sometimes that line might be a little fuzzy.
That's right.
But insofar as you can,
Yeah.
these are inside, these aren't.
That's right.
You said the small group leader training. I don't think I remember that. How often is that? How intensive is that? A quick word on that.
Well, these podcasts
You don't know about them.
Well,
do you?
these podcasts are interesting.
You've not been involved in them.
These podcasts are interesting because they live potentially for years and years and years. So it depends on when someone is listening to this. But in the Platonic form that is our church, small group leader training happens regularly and is absolutely fundamental for the way our men and women leading their men's and women's groups are able to teach God's word. And
in the Platonic form.
they'll happen
But in actuality,
they'll happen on Saturday mornings, and they'll happen a couple times a year.
Okay. Has there not been consistency in that?
One wouldn't like to say.
Very well. We'll leave that as is. So it's ideally.
The responsible church is taking responsibility.
What kind of things are you teaching? And are you teaching like content? Or are you teaching like pedagogy?
Pedagogy. Okay. And
how to handle a tough member.
Yeah, and pastoral concern for the members of the small group, for the members of the church. Yeah.
So many
maybe
churches
previewing some good topics to cover, good resources to use on said topics.
And in your church, the small group leaders all get to choose what they teach.
That's right.
Do they clear it with an elder?
In the Platonic form of our small groups, they certainly do. In actuality, what's happening at the time that you and I are recording this, I'm not sure.
Yeah, fair enough. A lot of Christians love small groups.
Yeah.
And make a big deal of them.
Yeah.
And the churches in turn make a big deal of them.
Yeah, some churches will assume that your involvement in a small group is really your best fellowship in the church. It's how you get to be known and get to know others.
Your concern with that is?
Well, I think that tends to be truer for newer members. I think as people go on in the life of the church, they get to know other people and their relationships can change, mature, grow. And a particular small group less and less represents their knowledge of and interaction with the whole church every month, every year that goes by.
You want that to be the case?
Well, I think it normally is the case.
Okay.
And therefore, the small group, in what initially magnifies their knowledge of the congregation's knowledge of them, ends up stultifying, cramping, limiting it, if really it's just seen to be that and mainly that. That's the way by which you get to be known in the congregation. Whereas we'd rather say, come on Sunday morning and Sunday night, stay around afterwards, talk to people, broadly get to know people, and then have friendships also that you build with people you work with or live near, or the Lord just lays on your heart, common circumstances throw you together. And being in a small group can be one of those things. But I would prefer it not be the only one of those things, the only circumstance.
So if a person said to you, hey, look, I can come on Sunday morning
Yeah.
and come on Sunday night, or I can come on Sunday morning and join a small group,
Come on Sunday night every single time.
Yeah, that's hands down.
Forget the small
utterly
group.
clear to you.
That's right.
Yeah, right. And you're skeptical of churches that try to build their ministry too much on small groups?
Yeah, because most churches would not have only elders as small group leaders.
Yeah.
So that's my concern there.
Well, your church doesn't.
No. Yeah. So a church is probably not going to be able to not appropriately treat small groups as the necessary first level of pastoral care to go through, then to after that be able to access the elders. Only if they've exhausted the kind of first level of their small group leader, then can they appeal to their elders. I would just be concerned that if you do that, you're going to get members who go to a small group leader when they probably should just go directly to a pastor for some questions or concerns they have.
Advantages of a gender-specific small group?
Yeah, there are obviously some topics you're going to feel more free to talk about. You're going to get more quickly able to encourage, to offer accountability. Yeah.
And advantages then of community groups?
Oh, you'll get a clearer picture of the marriage or the whole family. You'll get to know each other's family units. You can supply different stages of life: single, married, older, younger, teenage kids, little kids, no kids at home. It makes for a more well-rounded community.
Does it seem like...
And a potentially a really good witness in the neighborhood.
Yeah. So your overall concern in this is to see them more useful as launch pads into the life and fellowship of the church.
Yeah.
And if they're cliquifying, that's a problem.
That is. I'm happy for one to stay in a small group for 20 years, but then for them to be a part of using it, as you say, as a launch pad, for them being able to use it to build up not just themselves and the 7 other individuals in the group, but the church as a whole by the contributions these people are led to make.
Yeah. Okay, so then going back and said something you said a moment ago, what is the relationship? What should be the relation? I understand there should be flexibility between churches, but I don't know, any best business practices, if I might, of the relationship of the elders to the small groups.
Yeah, I think for us, given our size, our small groups we basically trust are overseen by an elder who is on staff, so who has time to do that. But all of our elders have relationships with folks who do lead small groups. It's a little more textured than that. But yeah, there is a brother on staff who will call around, check on the small groups with the leaders, see how they're going, ask what they're teaching right now, ask them if they have any challenges. Yeah.
How many small groups is that he's overseeing?
Brother, I don't know. 30?
I mean, is it
30, 35, 50, something like that. In the Platonic form of our church, it would be, I don't know. It's a bunch of them.
I like this new shtick of Platonic form. That's interesting.
It appeals to your old philosophical work.
Okay, so he's overseeing 50 small groups. That's obviously not an intensive, in-depth
Well, I mean, if I realized it was that many, we would have doubled the amount of employees. But until I was in this interview, I didn't realize
he's just checking. Is everything going okay?
That's right.
That's what he's doing. And do you feel like you have any?
Martha, how are you? How's everything going? Great,
yeah.
Thanks.
Maybe a little more. But not a whole. Okay, the elders generally, though, I can recall sitting in elder meetings when, hey, has anybody seen Joe? Nobody's seen Joe. What small group's he in?
Those conversations still happen, and they happen in staff meetings too.
And that's presumably useful.
Yeah, it is.
And so,
though, if somebody's not in a small group, still we're going to want to know who their relationships are, who here knows them. Yeah,
of course. But that one useful tool for the elders is the small group.
Another useful factor.
Structure of it. Yeah, that's right. Do you have any idea what percentage of CHBC members would be in a small group?
Let's guess 50%. I think it's 50%. I feel good about that estimation. Feel good about that. How about Chevrolet?
Alberta?
What would it be?
70, 80%.
Okay.
Alberta, are you in a small group? No, he's not. 2 elders in this room. Are you, Ryan? The pastoral assistant on. So nobody in this room is in a small group.
We're very busy.
I feel like I'm asking the wrong room all of a sudden.
Yeah.
These questions.
Yeah.
I'm in a small group.
That's great, man.
John Joseph wasn't.
Okay.
And as the lead pastor. So even though we've put more emphasis on it, he wasn't a part of it. And I think that was absolutely fine.
How can you tell when it's time to close in prayer?
Well, I'm just looking over my list here. I think I've asked everything I want to do. Did you have anything else you want to say on small groups?
I would seriously consider using them in tandem with the sermons, whether it's in preparation for what's going to be preached on,
Opportunity to
preparation
reflect on.
afterwards. Yeah, it's a great natural way to line your small groups up with the life of your congregation as a whole spiritually.
Opportunity to drill down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they can be very useful in that way. Great. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
For more articles, books, and podcasts, please visit ninemarks.org.